Okay, hello, and welcome to the Dogfight, a podcast dedicated to the London Spitfire and Overwatch League. Fasten your seatbelts and observe the no smoking sign, because today we'll be discussing some exciting rumors about potential new signings, the Spitfire's 2-0 week, and what London has in store for week 3 of Stage 2. I am Havokpus, and I'm seeming to be flying solo today. I don't have my usual co-pilots with me. But that's okay, because sometimes it's okay to go alone. You're never really alone as long as you have friends. So with that, let's jump right into it. I think the first thing is a nice little fly over the rumor mill, because similar leaks from Korea have come out, similar to the ones that have revealed Rascal, Fisher, and Guguri's signings to their respective teams, that have come out with more Overwatch League signing news. The San Francisco Shock are rumored to take on Architect and Choi Hyobin. The London Spitfire will be reportedly getting Tizzy and Diding. LA Gladiators will be getting Void, and Dallas Fuel will be getting OGE, or OG. I'm not sure how to pronounce that last one, but trust me when I say that it is spelled OGE. And I find these signings somewhat interesting. I think, starting off probably from London's point of view, I think it's a pretty good idea. You're able to fill out the spots that Fisher and Rascal left when they left, and probably at a reduced cost to probably, their, I guess, starting salaries, since everyone was probably expecting them to start. So you're having, nice good sub spots with, reduced salary, so you don't have to pay as much. Plus, I think that it's a good idea to bring on, Tizzy and Diding. Tizzy is a main tank. He played for Runaway. And I think it's a good idea to introduce this second main tank, just because the main tank position seems to be the one that dedicates the pace of the game, as well as how the team operates in terms of their strategies. So I think that having a second main tank is always good, because you will have a different perspective from Gesture. Gesture has been playing very well and has been hard carrying in some cases, actually. But I think a second perspective is always good. Sometimes we do see the London Spitfire kind of struggle maybe with a compositional thing or how they really want to approach a map. So I think having an extra set of hands on deck to kind of just say, oh, I would play this differently, or they would play in a different style than to this sort of counter dive that London likes to do, would be really helpful. Going against Houston, for example, Houston plays very anti-dive, and since London tries to play dive, they really struggle with it. But with Tizzy, maybe Tizzy can find some way to counteract Houston's counter dive. You get what I'm saying, though. And I think Diding is also useful because he is very specialized on the Pharah, which London has kind of struggled with. Also, he does sort of play flex and goes to an off-tank role, so I think that would be very good. Since the meta is kind of shifting in this weird spot where you can do triple tank, you can do quadruple tank even, so you can have him be very flexible in, okay, you can play the Pharah and then immediately switch over to like a Roadhog or a D.Va or something, or a Zarya, and still keep up with the team, and the team won't lose anything. So I think having a lot of flexibility is very useful. Moving over to the San Francisco Shock, I'm unsure about these signings. They already have Sinatra and Super, who are about to come of age, I believe. So having Architect in there seems to be just kind of stepping on their toes. I'm not necessarily sure if that's the smartest idea. Choi Hyobin, San Francisco seems to be doing pretty well with Nevix on the D.Va role, so having him in, I don't know how much that's going to elevate them. Maybe it'll help, maybe not. But I think the biggest issues is probably with Dallas, because Dallas adding yet another tank into their lineup. So now I think they have like 5 DPS and maybe like, with OGE, maybe like 4 tanks, which is very discerning. It's very concerning, I think, because now you have all of these big names, you have all these big stars competing for starting spots, and the team no longer has an identity. It's just big name players, and all of them are struggling to really find cohesion with each other. Especially when you got Rascal from London Spitfire and almost never play him. As an example. So what happens when they sign OGE and then they just continue to bench him for XQC? It's stuff like that I think will really have them struggle. But anyway, these are interesting rumors. I think as time progresses, we'll certainly learn if these rumors are true or if the variation of these rumors come out. It seems kind of likely. I know that today, March 5th, the London Spitfire did tweet that Jack did pen some sort of signing. If this is all just a meme or if this is actual, it's kind of waiting to be seen, but I think that's moving into that direction. But we will definitely report on this as it develops. But moving on to match results. The London Spitfire did 2-0 over the weekend, which is really good. They played against Florida Mayhem and the Philly Fusion. The Florida Mayhem game was actually kind of interesting because it was sort of a replay of their first match against them, where they really struggled on the first map and actually lost, and then they came back and dominated in the middle two maps, and then the final map they had a really close finish, which I found really interesting that it sort of mirrored the first match. But London losing hard on Volskaya was something that was really concerning to me, just because, and this is the GC Busan roster, which is, I guess, sort of London's B squad. And it's a strong B squad. I'm not saying that, they have no means of losing or winning or anything. But, they're struggling with Florida Mayhem. They didn't look practiced. Volskaya, they were just getting rolled on point A, and Volskaya is also a very snowbally map, so once you get rolled on point A, you have a really strong likelihood of getting rolled on point B. So they were kind of struggling with that, and it was somewhat concerning for me. I know that, they should ultimately win, and they ultimately did, and they did it in a fairly good fashion, but I think that that's not the kind of message I think you want to send to fans. You're going into the next stage, you're stage 1 champions, you had like a rocky week 1 of this new stage, and then coming into the second week, you're kind of struggling on the opening map against the 11th place team. So, kind of bad there, but London really picked it up. They had really good performances, like dominant performances on Li Zhang and King's Row, which I really wanted to see, because in week 1 they continued to struggle on control, and they had issues on King's Row, so the fact that they were able to play really well on those maps was really good, and I think that that's something that shows that some progress is actually being made, and they are kind of getting into the groove of this new meta. And as for Route 66, it was a too close for comfort 3-2 win. I didn't like that, but a win is a win. I'm not sure if the shaky performance should be worrying, considering the results of the Philly Fusion match, which I'll get to in a little bit. But, it might be just a thing of they see Florida so weak that they don't really need to practice and prepare for them. I think one thing that was interesting is that they put in Hureg for the whole game. They let Birdering kind of sit out. They let some of their A squad players sit out and just kind of rest, take it easy, maybe not show their hand in terms of what they were planning ahead for future matches and whatnot. I think Hureg did a fine job. I think he did just about as well as Birdering, maybe a little less, but he was showing his versatility on heroes, switching to a lot of different stuff, and he was playing very well. So I think that Hureg did show that he's a really good DPS. He's very flexible. If we'll utilize him in a Pharah role, or if that is towards that Jading sign that I did mention, who knows, but I think that Hureg did show his mettle, and it did show that he is a very capable DPS that we can certainly use, especially in situations that we don't want to, tire out our star DPS player. We can put in Hureg, and we can be totally fine, and I think that's that's really great news, because you don't really want to be slacking in the DPS department. And if he can throw out the damage, that's all you really need. So good job from him in the GC Busan squad for, you know, really picking up, especially after that kind of troubling Volskaya match. You know, do changes need to be made for the future? Maybe, and I think these rumored new signings will, I think, remedy that. But for now, I think they're okay. I don't know. But moving on to the Philly Fusion match, and I think this is why we're going to be okay. They brought out the A squad. I'm talking Fury. I'm talking Bergring. I'm talking Bedosin. I'm talking Nuss. And they looked so clean. Going into this match, I was actually really worried, because Philly looked really strong in their past few games. You know, Boston was struggling in this stage, you know, in week 1. Philly beat them pretty convincingly. They also went 3-2 over the Houston Outlaws. EQO was looking super duper hot, and Shadowburn was looking as tough as ever. I think Fraggy was also looking a bit better, maybe, at least coming into this match. Because in this match, Fraggy got completely abused. Well, let's be honest. But, you know, coming into this, I was actually kind of worried. Philly looked really strong, and they looked like a very capable opponent. But then the match started, and London clearly showed that they had a game plan and a strategy well into before the game started. They knew how, you know, Philly played. They knew exactly what their approach was going to be in, you know, sort of the grand scheme of things, as well as I think on specific maps. They did not allow Philly to score a point for the first 3 maps, and that's amazing. You know, and I think also when they played on Nepal, London looked a lot better on control. I think that was actually one of their best control performances I've seen as of late. You know, it wasn't a lot of this really razor's edge, you know, trying to get control of the point or anything like that. It was very controlled gameplay. It was choosing the right heroes when you needed it, switching when it was appropriate, and just all around great controlled team play. Everyone looked very practiced. Everyone looked very sharp. And I think Bedosin especially, on that Zenyatta of his, he was doing so much work. And I think everyone was. I think Fury is definitely, I think, the better diva in the team, and I think that's because of his playstyle is more aggressive. He puts a lot more pressure on the enemy, and it makes it more difficult for them to find an opening, which is what I really like about Fury. I know Wu Hyul is sort of the more passive kind of reserved diva, but I like the aggressiveness that Fury puts out, and I think that that's why we have so much success with him and this A squad when, you know, they're all playing practice and on peak form. And Nuss, I think, as well, played a lot better. You know, Mercy was not his champion, that was not his meta, but he selflessly put him in that role of, I will play Mercy. And he came out today, or not today, but you know what I mean. He came out and he played really well on the heroes he played. I think he busted out the Ana a little bit. I think he also played Lucio fairly well. So everyone's looking really good. You know, this A squad lineup that they were sporting, if they can consistently do that and perform like this, I think London can definitely contend with just about everyone. You know, if they go into practice, if they go in with a strategy that they know will work, and everyone is playing on form and playing, you know, synergistically, then it should work. And I suppose, considering Philly's performance of just how much they were easily just, you know, counter dove, that, you know, were they really a threat in the first place? Was the Houston victory overhyping them? You know, did they overperform? I think that's a lot of questions that a lot of Philly fans, and I think a lot of Overwatch fans in general, will ask. You know, it's too soon to tell for me. I think that I'd really like to see how they play for the rest of the stage to really conclude if Philly was a threat or not. But I'm really curious why they didn't play EQO. It seemed like if they played him, it would have given London a harder time. But London came out swinging, and they played really well, and I'm really glad that they had a really nice 2-0. and it will definitely help them in the future. Speaking of, this Friday and Saturday, March 9th and 10th, will be when they will be playing next. On March 9th at 7 p.m. Eastern, they'll be playing against the Boston Uprising, and on Saturday, March 10th at 4 p.m. Eastern, they will be playing against the LA Gladiators. So the Boston match, I think, will be really interesting because Boston actually beat us. They upset us, I believe, 2-3. And I think it's something that London will definitely look to rectify with this match. Boston's really been struggling in Stage 2, and that might be part due to the Mercy Mena's unraveling. I know that the desk, and I think maybe some of the other casters have said that some teams have really used the Mercy Meta as a crutch to perform better than they would have, and some struggled with that because it wasn't really their meta, and then now that that's gone, they can really go back to the level that they were playing at before. So, some teams are playing much better, some teams are playing far worse. And I think Boston might be one of those teams that really use the Mercy Meta as a crutch. It seems that how they're performing lately, it may be because they can't just rely on that quick double instant res to really save a lot of fights and keep fights going longer than the other teams would like. But that being said, I think it's still definitely going to be a somewhat difficult match. They have good players. They have, of course, Striker and Dreamcapsper, who are a really great DPS duo, all things considered. Dreamcapsper also plays the Pharah, which is something we've had kind of a bit of a struggle to counteract, either by picking a counter Pharah or picking something that can stop Pharah fairly easily and, shut her down fairly easily. I think also they have Gamsu, who's a very, very good Winston. Gamsu seems to really have a really good synergy with the whole team and really make a lot of really smart plays with the Winston. So I think it's definitely going to be tough. I think that London's going to need to look to shut down Dreamcapsper, shut down Striker, make sure Gamsu can't make these super big plays that he likes to do, as well as, just keep supports and keep Gesture alive. I think Gesture has been a really key component in London's playing lately. If Gesture is alive and Gesture is playing very well, then London really succeeds. If Gesture is dying a lot and he's getting picked off a lot, the team really struggles because they don't have that really good Winston, just in the front line, as well as someone who can really help dictate how a fight is going. So if he's constantly dying, they're going to really struggle. And leading into that, you got to keep the supports alive, regardless who is playing. If it's Closer and Hagapen, if it's Nuss and Bedosin, if it's a combination of those four, mixed and matched, it doesn't matter. You got to keep those alive, because if you keep them alive, they'll keep you alive. So, you need to make sure that everyone is alive as much as possible. So definitely keep Gesture and the supports alive. If you can do that, I think a win is pretty much assured. And I'm looking at maybe a 3-1. I'm not sold yet on Control. I think that they may still have some issues going into this week. But if they do well in Control this week, I think their issues may be solved. As for the LA Gladiators match, this is gonna kind of be a friend versus foe, or a friend becomes foe type deal, because Fisher did play on London for a very short amount of time. He rode the bench for a lot of it. I think he only played a preseason match, and then maybe only once or twice in a regular season match, and I think it was only on an individual map. So Fisher's now in the starting lineup. I think that he definitely bolstered the Gladiators and gave Gladiators an extra boost in the front line. But I think that they may still struggle just because they've been having some issues with their DPS and really trying to find a right combination. Whether it be Surefour or Asher, or I think maybe Hydration is the other one. Whoever they're putting in, they seem to kind of struggle with getting proper damage out and helping their team kind of succeed. And I think there might also be some issues with their off tank. I think iRemix is their off tank, and maybe he's not really cutting it. That's why they're rumored to bring in Void, so their front line can be more in sync with each other. So I think that these sort of synergy issues and their struggle to coordinate with the DPS, maybe London's downfall. I think, or not London's downfall, LA's downfall. I've been mixing up LA and London a lot when just kind of thinking about this matchup. I think it's because they have a lot of similar letters, but I think for London to really find a way into this game, put a lot of pressure on their DPS, make them really struggle to get into the game, as well as, I think also make sure just Fisher can't do anything too crazy. They have played with Fisher a lot. They scrimmed with him a lot because of the internal scrim environment before he left. So, they know how he works. They know how he likes to play. So I think it's just about falling into that, making sure that you know what he's going to want to do and counteract that. Also, put a lot of pressure on their DPS, make them really work for it. And, maybe try to cut them off from the healing to make, just really make them struggle. And I think that London should win. I think this is going to be a more difficult one just because, the Gladiators can do some pretty crazy things, I think. I remember when London played them in preseason, we really struggled because Gladiators were whipping out the Bastion, and I think they were even whipped it out in some really weird spots. I can't remember, but we really struggled with that, and I think they had some really crazy supports, and I think I remember even at one point Shaz switched over to a Genji, and he was playing Genji, and he was doing crazy stuff. So they're kind of this wild card team, and I think the key is make them play more standard, and don't stoop down to their level and let them do any crazy stuff that they want. Just controlled, focused gameplay, and I think that that's what we're gonna get. I think that they'll be really focused on beating Fisher. So I think it'll be okay. I'm gonna predict 3-1, maybe 3-2. Maybe I don't know about that. Since it does go down to a control map, but hopefully London will be okay. As long as they're really practiced and they're really studied on this match. Also, before I go, a reminder: the British Hurricanes will be having their first game. That's the London Spitfire's EU Contenders team. The British Hurricanes will be playing against Singularity on March 11th at 1 p.m. Eastern. I'm very excited about it. We finally get to see our EU roster in action, and it should be pretty good. I believe there's probably some stiff competition in EU, but from at least the chatter from what I've heard in the Spitfire Discord, British Hurricanes should be a pretty high favorite to go pretty far in Contenders. We certainly have the roster for it. I'm really interested to see how everyone kind of performs and how they work together and stuff. So it should be super interesting. I know they've been scrimming like crazy, so hopefully they will do well. So be sure to tune in to support our friends from across the pond, and hopefully they will win. But I think that's gonna do it for me for this evening. I apologize that it was only me tonight. Hopefully I didn't do too badly. But please put your tray tables up and return your seats to their full upright position, because we're coming in for a landing. So thank you for listening. I sincerely mean that, and I will see you in the skies real soon.